2024 sure was a year. The year of all time, some might say. Not me though. I thought it was pretty bad personally. I mean, we still don't have the Switch 2, still no Silksong, still no Persona 6, still no Ace Attorney 7, still no Hades 2 full release because I don't want to play it in early access, still no Resident Evil 9, still no Mario Galaxy 3, still, oh wait, actually that one did come out this year, still no GTA 7, still no Metroid Prime 5, still no money in my bank account, still no girlfriend. I mean, like, seriously, what was going on this year? Just like with every year, I spent a lot of time chipping away at my backlog of banger games from previous years. I haven't actually gotten around to a lot of the stuff that I was excited for that released in 2024. Like, Mario & Luigi Brothers Ship has literally been sitting on my shelf since release date, and I haven't even opened the case yet. I'll get around to it eventually. But the games that I did play that released this year were pretty good for the most part. Before we get into all that, however, we gotta take a quick look at the dishonorable mentions. You know, the games that I dropped due to lack of an interest, or because they just plain stank. First up, Baldur's Gate 3. I gave Baldur's Gate 3 a fair shot. Played it for about 20 hours with some friends and then promptly put it down. This game is massive, and it's not at all unclear to me why everyone loves it so much. Hell, the friends that I was playing it with finished the game without me after I dropped it, and they thought it was amazing. Me personally, I was bored out of my mind. Evidently, the D&D tabletop style of gameplay just isn't for me. The next game that I dropped was Amnesia: The Dark Descent. The gameplay of Amnesia is that you pick up a note and the game flashbangs you. That's about it. At one point, I also spent like 30 minutes trying to get out of bounds by building a tower, and that was somehow the most fun I had with this very outdated game. What's next? Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. Jesus, this fucking game. It feels like the levels were made by monkeys. Call it a skill issue, but some of the level gimmicks felt so damn janky. I spent about half an hour on this launcher level that doesn't even work, and then another half hour on this spiral level where I finally gave up. This game just pissed me off. Slay the Princess and Ultra Kill. I know these are beloved indie titles, especially Ultra Kill, but after putting a couple of hours into each of them, I decided they just weren't my thing. And finally, Pilgrim is a Lethal Company wannabe that is so terribly unpolished and nearly unplayable that it didn't even deserve the 30 minutes I put into it, and especially not the $12 it has the audacity to price itself at. Anyway, that covers the games that I tried and took a bite of this year before spitting them back out. Oh, one last thing. I'm not going to be ranking any games that I replayed this year, or any ongoing multiplayer games that I've been playing for years that didn't receive any substantial new content in 2024. Because seriously, what else do you want me to say about Mario Kart 8? Okay, time for the actual ranking of every game I played in 2024.
The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night.
ShipWrecked 64 answers the age-old question of what if Five Nights at Freddy's was a platformer for the Nintendo 64? I know. Burning question we've all had. You play as Discount Freddy. He doesn't own a pizzeria, but he can triple jump. So how does ShipWrecked 64 actually work? Well, you see, in order to beat the game, you have to first beat the game, and then you can play the real game, where you have to open up 10 different browser tabs and get a master's degree in bullshit to solve the rest of the game's puzzles. You smack an otter to watch a cutscene of a guy getting his head bashed into the wall by fake Firebear. Take a quick course in music theory to open a single door. You press a random button which opens up a tab in your actual browser to a video of a random volcano. You gotta search up the name of the volcano in this video to find out the year it last erupted. This information will be false the next time that volcano erupts, by the way. Which is the code to this door that leads to a button which is only one of 3 buttons required to access another button which is only one of 2 buttons required to open another door. Now you have to activate 20 keypads in under 10 minutes while you're being chased by enemies who will jump scare you if you get seen by them, and then jump scare you again if they catch you. They can also just sometimes spawn on top of you. Did I mention that all of the lore in this game is delivered to you through what feels like 100 different sticky notes and audio logs?
Okay, as of today, the beige, park, and hull are all complete. Even got all of it here.
And what is the cool and mysterious lore of this game? Well, it basically just boils down to the overplayed evil corporation and killer mascot, and guy behind the slaughter is using the mascot from the evil corporation he used to work for as a disguise for his killings. Oh, no way. Whoa. Oh my god, that's crazy. This is one of the worst games I've ever played.
Welcome to Mario
Party. In preparation for a future video, hopefully, I've been slowly playing through the entire Mario Party series, covering every game that I had not already played, which is more than half of the series, so prepare to see a lot of Mario Party on this list. Anyway, I've now at the very least dabbled in all of the mainline home console releases, and I think my least favorite of the original 8 has to be Mario Party 4. I know this is a beloved one, and all I have to say is that nostalgia does crazy things to us all. And it all comes down to the board design with Mario Party 4. There is not a single good one. For some reason, this game was obsessed with having alternating intersections on every board just to make half of the routes inaccessible at any given point. Some boards will just permanently trap you within the starting zone for half the game if you're unlucky enough. It's asinine. And the mini games, they're good, they're alright. I don't think they're as amazing as people claim they were though. I feel like when people say that Mario Party 4 has the best mini games in the series, they really just mean book squirm. And even if this game really did have the penultimate selection of mini games, it doesn't make up for the awful board design.
Join the Helldivers.
Just like with Baldur's Gate 3, I'm not about to tell you that I think Helldivers 2 was secretly a bad game just to sound different. Again, I'm not trying to get crucified out here. I just personally didn't get anything out of Helldivers 2. A lot of it comes down to the fact that I started playing this game with friends who were like 30 levels and 50 hours ahead of me, so every match kinda just consisted of them doing all the heavy lifting while I ran around like a complete idiot. Not much else I can really say for this one, considering I didn't stick with it for too long, but yeah, I just wasn't a fan of Helldivers 2. Hey guys, me Mr. Beast. Today I'm getting, oh my goodness, less funny, less interesting, less replayable, and just less fun version of Lethal Company. I think the foundation of content warning is solid enough. However, the game relies too heavily on the players trying to make it more than it really is by injecting your own humor into its uninteresting gameplay loop. Unlike with Lethal Company, you actively have to try and squeeze out those funny moments from this game which it's actively trying to build itself around, and it always just comes off as too forced and unnatural. Most of the time you just head back to the lobby looking like this, to rewatch the round that you just played only to realize that you didn't even record half the funny stuff, and all you're left with is a 1-minute clip of sporadically cut nonsense in empty hallways, while the camera person mumbles awkwardly to themselves.
Oh my god. What was?
I only played Rabbit & Steel for about 3 hours this year, which is a considerably short playtime for a roguelike. The reason it's included in this ranking at all is because A, I technically beat it, and B, I felt like I'd seen everything the game had to offer in that amount of time. It's slow, it's long, and most of the upgrades you get during runs never felt substantial. The game also feels designed around multiplayer first and foremost, considering it takes forever to deplete the health bar of each individual boss when playing solo. They're all just giant bullet sponges and endurance tests to me, a lot of whom have really annoying attack patterns that just fill the screen with a bunch of information overload. Rabbit & Steel is a good game for the right person, and if you're looking for some multiplayer bullet hell madness, I'd say at least give it a shot. But I played a plethora of infinitely more fun bullet hells this year that we'll get to a little later.
Luane kicked the bucket! Oh wait, he's still alive.
I'm terrible at traditional fighting games, and I don't have the patience or skill to ever truly get good at them. And when a good majority of your friend group play fighting games optimally, or even professionally to some degree, it's hard for me to get inspired to continue practicing when I constantly get steamrolled. However, Granblue Fantasy vs. Rising came very close to getting me invested in a fighting game. Is it because of the unique, beginner-friendly mechanics, or the killer soundtrack, or maybe the charming art style, or even the vast selection of cool characters? No, it's just because of Luane, baby! You see, Luane is a gimmick character who is actually 3 identical guys that form a human pyramid for their special, and their ultimate just summons a god that forces your opponent to play Mario Party for the next 10 seconds. Luane is now my most wanted character for the next Smash Bros. Game. Next to Phoenix Wright.
Ain't nothing like a phone gimme!
Okay, so Lethal League Blaze is a fighting game, but instead of throwing hands, you hurl a ball back and forth at your opponents until it reaches max speeds, and then you have to somehow hit it back anyway. It is just pure, unbridled chaos. But being able to somehow tame that ball of chaos just fills you with an unmatched feeling of power, like you're rising above the game's impossible demands against all odds. If this game had some actual depth to it, it could have been unbelievable. But the problem is, once you've got the hang of it, which doesn't take too long, most matches just turn into
I'll get a stand back! Oh shit!
I'll get a stand back!
Something touching that.
I'll get a stand back! Stand back, I got this! Let me get it! I got this one, guys! All me, baby! Don't worry, I have this under control. It's getting pretty bad over here.
It's losing!
We got it! From the developer that brought you Rabbit & Steel, which I've already expressed my immense disinterest in, comes a game that I kinda like but is still pretty lacking overall. Maiden Spell is primarily a PvP shoot-'em-up bullet hell, which you'll soon see is a genre that I delved deep into this year. Maiden Spell does have a single-player campaign, but it's advertised first and foremost as a PvP experience, and that's the aspect of it that I actually cared about. It's pretty bare bones. You've got 8 playable characters with about 4 moves each, and very little strategy you can actually employ with these kits. There's relevant counter-picking methods, methods and general combinations that you can pull off with your limited number of abilities, but it mostly just ends up devolving into pressing the same 3 buttons in sequential order while playing the game as a regular bullet hell. It's fun for maybe a few hours, but after getting my fill, I really have no desire to go back for more. A fun little game while it lasted, and it's all it'll ever be. Oh, but I nearly forgot to mention that the best part of Maiden Spell is that this is one of the only games I can consistently beat my friend Sam in.
Run it back.
Yeah, sure.
Actual cheating. Run it back. Like I genuinely can't do anything against that. Okay, no, run it back. I am actually. No, run it back. This shit's fucked.
Plus 10 points for Maiden Spell just for letting me bully him.
Welcome to Mario
Party 5. I really don't have that much to say about Mario Party 5 compared to the others. I had fun with it just like the majority of the series, but 5 was also pretty forgettable. The board layouts are good, but having to place down staple spaces like the Koopa Bank, Boo, or even Chance Time through items, instead of them properly being woven into the design of the boards is pretty lame. This shit isn't some Super Mario Party Maker. I don't want to design the board myself. That's your damn job, Hudson. The minigames are pretty weak too. A lot of mashing and luck-based minigames in this one make for a mostly unmemorable selection to complement the game as a whole. I think the last 5 turn events are funny as hell though, because they are absolutely unbalanced beyond any reasonable metric. What the wait, what?
What the fuck?
What?
Oh my fucking
Holy shit.
I'm on one of them.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot.
Finding Paradise is the sequel to an RPG Maker game called To the Moon, which is not affiliated with Bruno Mars's hit song Talking to the Moon. I remember when I initially played Finding Paradise, I thought it just plain sucked. This is a narrative-driven game, although I hesitate to even call it such since I honestly think that this thing could have been a book or a webcomic and you'd get the exact same experience out of it. Despite that, it was actually the story itself that I felt a bit betrayed by with this title. The whole first act feels like it's building up to what I thought was a fairly obvious plotline, but one that I thought could be really engaging if it was executed well. And then the game completely 180s, hitting you with some "it was all a dream" levels of bullshit. Which is ironic considering this game is all about fulfilling dreams by creating dreams through people's dreams. Anyway, I've grown fonder of the narrative and the game overall after having some time to develop my feelings on it a bit more and by discussing it with some friends. I still don't think the story is nearly as airtight as the first games, but it wasn't quite as irredeemable as I once thought. Still not great, but I at the very least have a desire to eventually finish the series, so that has to count for something.
Who's coming? Huh? If you're coming right now, let me see it!
Hell yeah, I love party games, and I especially love Jackbox games. But you know which Jackbox games are some of my least favorite? The trivia ones. Because I don't give a shit whether or not the nitrogen trifluoride is a major greenhouse gas. I just want to make stupid jokes and laugh at stupid jokes. The only Jackbox trivia game I really enjoy is Fibbage, because it's the fun kind of trivia. And with this year's standalone release of the Survey Scramble, I now like 2 Jackbox trivia games, because this one barely counts as trivia. The Survey Scramble is a really cool idea that works fairly decently on paper. It's basically just free-for-all Family Feud, except instead of the top 8 answers for a question, it's closer to the top 400. With such a large sample size of answers, you're eventually going to start hitting the bottom of the barrel where the answers barely even relate to the question anymore. But the game kind of builds itself around this in smart ways through its various modes. With rounds being so short and with the game having a seemingly endless supply of categories, the Survey Scramble might just be one of the most replayable games in the Jackbox series.
What's the first one? Please don't be what everyone thinks it is. Grab, snap, type, punch. Okay. Yep. Of course.
Oh, great heavens!
So I actually started my playthrough of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles at the very end of 2022. I got through the first 4 out of 5 chapters from the first game, and then shelved the collection indefinitely. They weren't bad cases, but compared to the excellent quality of the original trilogy's cases, which I had only played about a year prior, I couldn't help but feel a bit underwhelmed. I was honestly pretty bored throughout my playthrough. Well, I finally found the motivation to give the game another shot. And I'm so glad I did, because wow, the payoff with the sequel is nothing short of incredible. It's such an explosive finale that manages to bring together everything the first game was building up to in such a magnificent and— wait, hold on, I'm only supposed to be talking about the first game right now. Yeah, even with a great final case that fully reignited my love for Ace Attorney, the first game as a whole is still a massive step down from the sequel, and might honestly be my least favorite of the overall series out of the 5 games I've played. Both great Ace Attorney games differ so vastly in quality for me that I decided to split them up for this ranking, so we'll talk about the sequel a little later. I'm not even gonna bother talking about Splatoon 3 multiplayer this year, because I frankly lost almost all interest pretty early on. But they did release the roguelite DLC, and I mostly want to talk about that. It kinda sucks. One of the most important factors of any roguelike or roguelite is the replayability. It's at the core of this genre's design philosophy, to have the player go through it over and over again. So it's important to have enough quantity and variety in content to justify asking the player to repeatedly play through the game. Side Order does not do this. The enemy variety is minimal, there's a truly pathetic number of objectives, and the stages you attempt these objectives on are laughably bland and scarce. And aside from the final boss, there are only 3 bosses you can encounter, and each full run will have you fighting 2 of them. That is a shockingly embarrassing level of content. All that being said, the gameplay is fun enough at its core, and the abilities you choose from can be pretty fun to mix and match. It makes for some pretty wild and overpowered builds, which is another essential aspect of roguelites that Side Order actually does get right. I didn't get a whole lot out of Side Order, and it's not comparable in any capacity to any substantial game in the genre, but for a DLC, yeah, I guess it's pretty alright. To the Moon is an RPG Maker game and is the prequel to the aforementioned Finding Paradise. The overarching plot of these games is that you play as 2 scientists fulfilling the dying wishes of comatose patients by delving into their memories and forcibly altering them so that they can lucidly live out their own idealized version of reality before they die. Does that sound like an interesting premise? Well, that's because it is. You know what isn't interesting though? The gameplay. It's a walking simulator that does nothing to enhance the story whatsoever. I already glossed over this point when talking about Finding Paradise, but I'll reiterate it here. If this game was a book, you'd get the exact same experience out of it. And yeah, you could say the same for a lot of visual novels and whatnot, but at least with those, you can actually just sit back and treat them like, well, a novel. And a lot of the visual novels that I do like actually have gameplay in the form of clever puzzles or mystery solving. There's merit in them being video games because they're interactable in meaningful and fun ways. So either make a book or make a damn video game. This half-assed middle ground is not enjoyable. Okay, anyway, the story of To the Moon is pretty good. It's nothing mind-blowing, it's nothing you haven't seen done before to a degree, but it's just a solid narrative told in a creative way, and it all comes together in a really satisfying conclusion. I like the twists, I like the characters, I just plain liked it. If you're interested, go watch a YouTube video of someone playing this because there is nothing to play.
I said I played these games before!
Buckshot Roulette is a game where you shoot your friends in the face, but only if you know how to count. And what I learned from playing Buckshot Roulette is that I don't know how to count. This game does a great job at making you feel like a complete idiot. It's so straightforward. It shows you at the start of each round how many blanks and live shells are in a shotgun, and then you just play Russian roulette with it while chugging 15 liters of beer and eating cigarettes to gain extra health, just like in real life. Except every time I blink, I suddenly forget how many bullets are left in the chamber, as if there weren't only 4 to keep track of. The strategy to luck ratio of Buckshot Roulette is in a perfect sweet spot that keeps every game you play feeling fair, yet intense all the same. But if you're as stupid as someone like me, it'll just feel like you're playing regular old Russian roulette. The more I think about Mouthwashing as time has passed, the more it's grown on me. If I had made this list fresh off of my playthrough, I think it'd be a fair bit lower. For how hyped up it was, and for how big of a fan base it spawned out of thin air, Mouthwashing was a bit disappointing to me. The gameplay is in this weird middle ground of visual novel that's trying to parade as a horror game, and it doesn't do either genre particularly well. Dissimilar to games like To the Moon and Finding Paradise, Mouthwashing's presence as a video game feels a lot more integral to the experience, because unlike those pure visual novels or pseudo ones, Mouthwashing wouldn't have worked nearly as well as just a book. There's a lot of environmental storytelling and striking imagery, especially in those psychedelic segments, though more importantly, the game's strongest element only really works in a video game setting. I think everything about the way the story is framed is executed almost flawlessly. The non-linear storytelling makes the narrative itself a puzzle that you slowly piece together. It's impressive just how drastically your perception of the first half of the game is recontextualized once you begin to understand the full picture. And even if the twist might be obvious to some, the story isn't just as shallow as that single plot device. Your thoughts, your perception of the characters and the space around you, your entire idea of what mouthwashing is even about are all intertwined with the character you play as. The way it takes full advantage of having you in the shoes and the mind of the main character was unbelievably captivating to me, and it's stuck with me ever since I rolled credits. It's hard to convey exactly why the story is so brilliant without spoiling it, which is why I've been keeping it so vague, but just know that it really is as good as people say. Anyway, the gameplay sucks mega balls. If you're gonna do a visual novel, then make it a visual novel. And if you're gonna do an immersive video game, then make an actual fucking video game. Everything that exists as it does to serve the narrative is detrimental to the actual gameplay experience of playing mouthwashing. The ship is tiny and uninteresting in design, the puzzles you solve are insultingly easy, they may as well not be here at all. The entire final act feels kinda stitched together as you just repeatedly walk through these nightmare-fueled set pieces, designed to just retell the events of what you've witnessed in an already condensed game, which brings me to another point. You spend so much of this time just walking through empty hallways with nothing to do and not enough time with the actual characters. I would have almost preferred this game be a visual novel if it meant getting more time to flesh out the crew, because as integral as they are to the plot and how character-centric the narrative and themes of this game are, you barely get to talk to them or even see them interact as a crew. On top of that, this game has exactly 3 horror survival segments slapped on to give the illusion that you're playing an actual video game. The one in the cemetery is actually a perfectly implemented scene that is incredibly tense, and it ties back seamlessly with the current events of the main story. The other 2 examples, on the other hand, are just long and slow and even frustrating, and they feel more like distractions from the main story. One of them is this dreadful version of red light green light that forces you to inch through it over what feels like 10 minutes. I don't care how symbolic it is, that shouldn't impede on it being fun, at least in the context of a horror game. Overall, I know I've dug into mouthwashing quite a bit, but despite all of that, I do still think it's a great experience. I'd recommend it for the story alone. It's something best experienced firsthand and one that deserves your attention, regardless of mouthwashing's numerous flaws.
If you're gonna play like that, you better have shockwaves to finish the job, because if that guy had shockwaves after he railed me like that from behind—
Fortnite! Oh man, I love Fortnite! Sometimes. This game changes so much between each season that every time I jump back in for a bit, it feels like I'm on a whole different game. I got back into Fortnite this year with the whole Mad Max season, which was fun as hell. The cars are probably the best addition Fortnite has ever received. And that season was basically just an open world racing game where you get points for running over pedestrians. It was great. I lost all the footage I had of that season, but every game was basically like this.
After he came from behind.
Then I played the Doctor Doom season with the Iron Man item and like the Captain America shield. That season fucking sucked. Which is the biggest problem with Fortnite. The quality changes just as drastically as the game itself does. You know, it does wonders to keep the game from ever feeling stale, but it also just keeps me away from the game for several months when a season like the Doctor Doom one rolls around, where every game in the season was basically just like maximum. So you know, I stepped away for a while, but then eventually I came back with this latest season that brings with it the new greatest addition to ever grace Fortnite. A katana. This is my new favorite toy since the hamster balls. I was slicing enemies off cliffs, raining down justice from the heavens like I'm fucking Sephiroth. Every match with a katana just has you feeling like you're Raiden from Metal Gear Rising. Absolute peak right here. Also, they added back the original Fortnite as a new mode, and like, as someone who's there from the original Season 3, you know, just shy of the game's launch, this shit is not nearly as good as we remember. I honestly love the new wacky and fun side of Fortnite way more than this slogfest. Playing OG Fortnite nowadays just kind of feels like
yeah, like money will come.
Mario Party 7. Mario Party 7 seems to be a divisive one. Actually, all of the GameCube Mario Parties except for 6 seem to be divisive. I actually like 7 quite a bit though. It's got really solid boards and generally great gameplay mechanics, which is something I've begun to notice is not very consistent across the series. A Mario Party can have an excellent catalog of minigames and some cool side modes, but ultimately the boards are what holds it all together. If the boards suck, the game sucks. And even though 7 does take a blow from its mediocre minigame pool, the boards themselves are fun. And it's like my man Reggie once said, if the boards are fun, the game is fun.
そしてもちろん、ズンさんの東宝 project.
So I was in a Discord call earlier this year with one of my friends. We were talking about bullet hell games, and at some point she brought up Touhou. And to be frank, even though I'd obviously heard of the Touhou series before, I had absolutely no idea what the games were actually like, or even what genre they were. Turns out, a lot of genres. Anyway, before I knew it, I had a zip file for Touhou 8 Imperishable Night on my desktop. So, to answer my own question, and potentially yours, what is Touhou? I think it's a cooking game or something. Mario Party 3. You know, I used to think Mario Party 2 was the best in the entire franchise, but now I'm honestly torn on whether it's even the best Mario Party on the N64. Mario Party 3 is awesome and might just be my new favorite of the series. The boards are insane in this one, some of the most chaotic and unbalanced boards of the franchise, but I honestly kind of love that. Mario Party 2 is still an excellent entry, but it's very grounded and well balanced comparative to a lot of the other entries, which is a good thing overall, but it does leave the game feeling a bit, you know, vanilla these days. Mario Party 3 has an item that forces the game to end in 5 turns. What were they smoking with this one? This might just be the Mario Kart Wii of Mario Party. It's bullshit, but it's the truly fun variety of bullshit.
Touhou Project.
Touhou 9, Phantasmagoria of Flower View, aside from being an absolute mouthful, is basically Touhou 8 but multiplayer. Both players are essentially playing their own game of Touhou while your opponent sends a barrage of attacks for you to deal with. You know, in case you didn't already have a full screen's worth of bullets to avoid. It's kinda like how Puyo Puyo Tetris plays out, but with anime girls. Okay, it's like Puyo Puyo but with only anime girls. It's got a plethora of characters whose names all escape me. I think one of them has like a trumpet or something, all equipped with their own unique skill set, and it's an incredibly addictive time. It balances its simple gameplay loop with a well-refined central mechanic that lets you choose between upping the offense on your opponent in hopes of ending them quicker, or sacrificing your meter for defense if you feel driven into a corner. You know, just enough complexity to keep the games interesting in my opinion, while not sacrificing the deceptive simplicity of a bullet hell. I would also be remiss not to mention the stupid fucking character who passively spits out 300 CDs every 5 seconds in an awkward spiral pattern that is infinitely more difficult to maneuver around than her fucking charge attack. My friend would literally counterpick me with this character like we're out here playing Tekken. So, now that I've played 2 Touhou games this year, I feel even more confident in answering the burning question for anyone still unsure of what the hell a Touhou project actually is. It's a music video.
7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
Last year, I played through the original Resident Evil 4. I hated it. It's aged poorly in my opinion, and it's mostly chalked up to the tank controls. But even setting that aside, so many sections just felt tedious to get through. Facing constant swarms of enemies with such limited mobility was a nightmare. Call it a skill issue, but I just didn't have any fun with it one way or another. Might have helped if I had someone to watch my back though. While Resident Evil 5 maintains that unfortunate outdated control scheme, having a second active player to compensate for it does an astronomical amount to completely remedy the issue. The campaign was such a blast. Resident Evil 5 is made for 2-player co-op, and it is made well. Fighting off hundreds of zombies when you have a friend to cover for you while you're reloading, or to blow up a tough bastard while you're helplessly limping away, makes for such a fun duo dynamic. Just like with 4 however, Resident Evil 5 is plagued by things like gimmicky boss fights, ridiculous difficulty skewing, and some sections in 5 really do feel like they go overkill with the enemy count, even with the 2 players in the mix. But honestly, co-op really did make a world of difference for this formula. I still prefer the modern Resident Evils by a long shot, but 5 definitely won my heart. The whiff.
I love chai tea. What did you just say? Chai tea, chai means tea, bro.
I'm not good at rhythm games, and I'm not great at hack and slashes. But what does that even matter when Hi-Fi Rush is as good as it is? This has to be one of the most passion-driven, love-infused AAA video games I've ever played. The art style makes this game feel so alive in a world that is alive. A world living and breathing to the beat of the music that defines it. Everything in this game is synced to its music. The animations, the environments, the choreography of cutscenes, platforming, fights, enemies, you in your chair. It all moves along to the rhythm, and I was constantly just blown away by how consistent it all is. The story may not be anything particularly noteworthy, but it's really not trying to be. It's a simple story there to drive motivations and set up the conflict. The writing and acting are what really shines here. The dialogue is as cheesy as the characters themselves, but it's never to a fault, and it all fits the tone perfectly. It's not really trying to be that serious of a game, it's trying to be a funny game, and it succeeds in spades through its great slapstick and genuinely hilarious dialogue paired with superb line delivery.
Oh, now this is a juicy meeting. Zanzo, I think you're muted, honey.
Oh, I was going to say.
They got Matthew Mercer in this as the main villain, and he is as good as ever.
Fired. Oh, should have used the flamethrower.
Well, there's always next time.
So what holds this game back for me? Well, nothing to the game's own fault, to be honest. The biggest factor just being that this hack and slash type of gameplay isn't really my thing. I never really got good at it even by the time I got to the end of the game, and while pulling off combos is immensely satisfying, especially synced to the beat of the music, it still had that repetitive tang that comes with a lot of the games in this genre, where it feels like I'm just repeating the same 3 effective combos in succession without too much thought. And while I appreciated how each boss fight plays completely different from one another, making them all unique, it also made it so that some of the bosses really dipped in quality. Some of them felt more like minigames, others just felt more annoying than fun. I especially found the fight with the flying bitch tedious, considering that airborne enemies in this game in general are way more of a nuisance to deal with compared to the grounded ones. And lastly, the actual platforming of this game wasn't particularly great. It serves well to break the pace of constantly fighting enemies, but the platforming itself is really floaty and imprecise. But don't let my personal gripes with this game dissuade you. If you love video games, then you should absolutely give Hi-Fi Rush a shot, because it was made to be a video game through and through, and a damn fun one at that.
Peter, what are you doing? Crack? What the fuck?
While Katana Zero may not be as grand, ambitious, or feature-filled as a game like Hi-Fi Rush, what matters most is how these games play, and Katana Zero's core gameplay is incredibly satisfying. It's fast and frantic, with a seamless flow to every encounter as you roll behind enemies, parry their bullets back, and just decimate an entire mob in one fell swoop. Seriously, that one-hit kill never gets old. And while the gameplay is obviously the star of the show here, Katana Zero actually has a really intriguing story that kept me hooked all the way throughout. But I'm gonna keep it short and sweet here, because the game itself is short and sweet. Maybe too short though. Because just as you truly begin to master Katana Zero, and just as that story promises a dramatic climax, the game suddenly slams its door shut on you. And it's not one of those games that's particularly interesting to replay. I mean, there's only so much variety to how each encounter can play out. And in a game with an already limited amount of levels, some of them are just over and done within a few minutes. I was craving so much more by the end, which in itself is a testament to how enjoyable the core gameplay is, but for as tasty as that pie was, it just didn't fulfill my appetite. This is one of those rare cases where I argue a game really is too short to a fault. It doesn't help that the game literally isn't finished. No kidding, the game ends on a huge cliffhanger with nothing ever being resolved, and then the final level is literally just a door teasing some future content. That is unfathomably disappointing. It's been over 5 years since Katana Zero's release, and this alluded to DLC is still yet to arrive. It's not to say that this is necessarily an unfinished game, but like it practically feels like it when it's promising an ending that seemingly doesn't exist. It's a great game that left a terribly sour taste in my mouth with its lack of a true resolution.
It's like Halo 2 meets Halo 3.
Animal Well is a super cute and charming platformer where you play is what I thought, until I realized that this is actually a horror game where an ostrich tries to viciously flatten you with a giant hamster wheel. There's a giant chameleon that tries to eat you, and the ghost of a dog that relentlessly chases you no matter where you go, and a horrifying seahorse that sprays you with water. Animal Well is not at all what I expected. I'm kidding for the most part when I call it a horror game, but in saying that, it honestly shares a lot of elements with horror games. There's practically no soundtrack throughout majority of the game, you're left to wander in silence through dimly lit, highly compact biomes, you're but a mere goldfish in this large pond, helpless to even the tamest of predators, like this dog who eats you if you don't have a frisbee. There's no combat at all, which is pretty unique for a Metroidvania. The gameplay just consists of platforming and puzzle solving. You utilize a small assortment of key items, all with a plethora of cool ways to interact with the environment and especially the animals you encounter, and it's just a lot of fun to experiment with. The puzzles are in that perfect category where they're never too difficult to figure out, but still require enough level of interactive problem solving to make you feel like a genius when you do crack the code, especially since Animal Well really rewards creativity and problem solving in your own way. Exploration is just excellent here as well. That thick, eerie atmosphere that constantly keeps you a little on edge for the next time a giant kangaroo tries to jump your ass is offset perfectly by just how beautiful this world really is. Delving deeper into the well feels rewarding too, which is really crucial for a game like this. Whether it's an Easter egg or a new item just to mess around with, there's almost always something waiting for you in that one mildly suspicious corner of a room. Going for completionist status can be pretty tedious, however. Some of the post-game puzzles are just absurdly vague or too complex to solve, and after a while your inventory becomes bloated with a bunch of new items that aren't nearly as versatile as the main ones. They function solely to clear maybe a room or two in the post-game, but this is all bonus anyway. It doesn't drag the main game down whatsoever, and the fact that I even felt compelled to try for completionist status at all goes to show just how much fun I had with the game. If you're looking to scratch that Metroidvania itch while endlessly waiting for Silksong, Animal Well definitely deserves your attention. I forgot what I was gonna say. Here's my full speed review for Super Mario Party Jamboree from a guy who is really kinda sorta passionate about Mario Party. The 7 boards featured here are pretty good for the most part with a few stinkers. Wiggler Tree Place is a great starter board. Goo Lagoon is a good concept, but when half the board disappears every 2 minutes, it just becomes a map comprised of 4 looping circles, 2 of which have 5 spaces or less. This is dog shit. Coconut Mall is a great complex board, but damn can it be confusing to navigate sometimes. The Mario Kart 1 is probably one of, if not the best linear board in the entire series, since there's enough actual decision making to keep it interesting. Western Land is a fucking nightmare in this game. The tickets make the train too prominent of a threat, and the amount of times players are sent back to the start because of it is maddening. Mario's Rainbow Castle, why? Why pick another shitty linear Mario Party 1 board? Mario Party 1 boards suck, but if you're gonna bring one back, at least make it one of the kinda interesting ones. Or just bring another board from Mario Party 3, but no, they keep neglecting that game for no good reason. The Bowser board is very stupid and bad, but it's the fun kind of stupid and bad. The minigames are a pretty mixed bag. Too many of the minigames go on for too long, which is just a major problem with this game in general. The pacing is atrociously bad. This is the first Mario Party game where I've yet to play a full 20-turn match because this shit takes forever. There's far too many board events that kill the momentum of the game. The Jamboree buddies, ooh, the fucking Jamboree buddies. I think they're interesting in concept, but a complete failure of a mechanic in practice. What's the point in working a butt off for them in a macro game if players can just steal them by running through you? I'll tell you why. It's because the Jamboree buddies are outrageously broken, and it would be a free win condition if the player who wins the rights for the buddy gets to use them unconditionally for 3 turns. So they have to counteract this by giving you some way to revoke them from your friends. But when it's this easy to do so, they become trivial, so you don't win either way. The economy is too inflated just like all the other Switch Mario parties. It's too damn easy to get money. The shops are unbalanced as hell because first place generally has the most money and can just keep buying overpowered items to remain uncontested. Chance time is too easily exploitable because it's not that hard to time and makes the game unfair as hell since you can abuse it. The last 5 turn events are an absolute joke here. Why is one of them just an option to give a random player a mushroom? What is the point of that? And why is another option to double the economy in an already inflated game? The side modes are worthless for the most part and just serve as fluff. But worse than that, they take away from the party mode's minigame pool, so there's actually less minigames than usual for the main mode. Koopathon is actually pretty fun, but when it has 9 minigames, you'll get tired of it after 2 hours. It's not even worth mentioning the other modes, cause who the hell cares? Overall, Mario Party Jamboree is the best original Mario Party we've had since DS, and the only reason I put it higher than something like Mario Party 3 is just because I played it way more with friends this year.
Monsieur, does this mean Overwatch is back?
No.
Overwatch 2 is the first hero shooter Okay. Yep, alright. Yep. Okay, just put all the sound effects in.
You're like
real fucking funny.
Zero purpose.
I didn't even say anything about the game. Listen, as someone who has never played the original Overwatch, or any hero shooter for that matter, I honestly had a pretty fun time with Overwatch 2 this year. I know this game's reputation is 6 feet under, but as someone who was playing it as a fresh new experience, and exclusively playing it with friends in unranked matches, I had a genuinely fun time with Overwatch 2. Can I get a kiss?
Okay, I got Widow's Path. Okay, I missed the Widow.
Will I continue to play it for years to come? Nah, probably not. I'm pretty content with the 120 hours I put in it this year, and with Marvel Rivals taking over the scene, if I'm gonna continue playing a hero shooter going into next year, it'll probably be that one. But yeah, now that I'm pretty much done with the game... Overwatch 2, am I right, guys? Overwatch 2? Get a load of this game. Overwatch 2? More like stupid fat... More like stupid game 2. Thank you. That's right. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I've made it pretty clear how I got invested in the shoot 'em up bullet hell genre this year, and the pinnacle of that genre for me was by far a little gem from 2018 called Zero Ranger. A friend literally recommended this game and then gifted it to me within the span of like 5 minutes. I booted it up, and before I knew it, I was thrown into one of the coolest fucking games ever. Zero Ranger is the epitome of what I want a shmup bullet hell to be. That straightforward arcade design philosophy where you just jump right in, no bullshit or nothing. You play the game, see how far you can get on a limited number of continues, and inevitably get absolutely demolished. With each run you learn, adapt, and you just get better. It's such an intoxicating gameplay loop that had me hooked no matter how much I failed. While I can absolutely appreciate the art style of something like Touhou, the visuals in Zero Ranger really helped to elevate this simple shoot 'em up style gameplay into an epic spectacle. And the fucking music, dude. The devs did this incredible thing where the music dynamically and seamlessly matches exactly what's happening on screen, making each battle and the entire journey as a whole feel like it's a professionally choreographed adventure. That dramatic and triumphant theme playing in the heat of battle pumps motivation straight through your veins, where even against what feels like an impossible foe, it eggs you on and makes you believe that you can fucking do this. I like Resident Evil. A lot. It's one of my favorite series of all time now, so naturally, it was only a matter of time till I tried Resident Evil but in space. There's a lot that the Dead Space remake does better and worse than some of my favorite Resident Evils. The setting of Dead Space is strikingly petrifying. You're trapped in a cold, dark metal box where the clanks of something you can't see echo through the vents and fill every long hallway with an overwhelming sense of dread. But it's not just the same drab, silver-coated rooms over and over. Each area of the ship has a unique theme and design to it, and it makes the spaceship you're trapped on feel like an actual well-defined location that once served a purpose in this world other than just the setting of a horror game. The enemy variety is way more interesting than your typical slew of zombies, or zombie but gun, or zombie but dog. Instead, you get a unique set of different alien types, with the trade-off being that I absolutely hate fighting the majority of them. Whether it's the monsters that pounce you from across the room, or the ones that spawn 10 more aliens upon death, or the absolute bastard small ones who snipe you from who knows where because some of these rooms are massive. Fighting these enemies felt more tedious than fun at times. It's especially a problem in the zero gravity segments where you're getting sniped by 100 small guys, except you can't hear where they're sniping you from because in space no one can hear the stupid little fuckers, so I just want to kill myself but they kill me before I even get the chance to do it! I don't like these guys. But it's okay, because Dead Space accounts for its annoying enemies with my favorite aspect of the game, the weapons, which are unlike any I've seen in any survival horror game. Dead Space does away with the typical handgun, shotgun, sniper, and instead you get to shred through enemies with a levitating chainsaw that ricochets when you shoot it, or a giant laser beam, or a gravity gun that shoots black holes. Even your starting weapon is a laser cutter that eventually lets you upgrade it so that you can just say, fuck it, and start punching and stomping the ever-living shit out of every alien unfortunate enough to cross your path. Seriously, this is how I started playing the rest of the game, because I think it's funny as hell to watch this regular-ass man rip and tear through enemies like he's fucking Doom Guy.
I think he's on. Jesus Christ, Karen.
That's not me, I'm at the top. Reaper, you fucking moron! What? I have over 200 hours on Lethal Company. I think it's safe to say now that I like this game just a little bit. While the base game has kind of stagnated with its lack of updates, the modding scene has still been going absolute apeshit with support for this game. Modded Lethal Company is easily the most fun I've had with any multiplayer game in the past few years. It's not often that you get such a talented and committed community that still continues to inject life into what would have been an otherwise slowly fading game by now. Whether it's new monsters, moons, interiors, or just goofy items to mess around with, Lethal Company has it all now. You can even gamble your loot away at a fully functional casino. Hey Evan, try not to explode challenge! It honestly doesn't get much better than this.
You're so lucky you don't have big boobs, White!
Neon White is a game about trying and trying. Fuck. Neon White is a game about trying again and again. Shit. Neon White is a game about trying again and. Oh, come on. Neon White is a game about trying again and again and again in the pursuit of near perfection. This is a 3D platformer cross first-person shooter where the goal is to beat each level as fast as possible while killing all enemies to access the goal. These levels are piss easy, and so is the game as a whole. You can smash this out in maybe 5 hours without breaking a sweat. The true game begins the first time you think to yourself, yeah, I can probably do that faster. There is a huge emphasis on speedrunning these levels. Your performance is based solely on your end time rather than anything like points or style. These levels, while technically linear in their routing, leave a lot of open space for you to branch off from the main route and figure out your own, more effective one. It even gives you hints for shortcuts to incentivize you to get faster times. Now, if I played this game casually from start to finish, only caring about hitting credits, I probably would have thought it was just okay. But if you're a competitive person like me, then be prepared to turn this 5-hour game into a 30-hour grind. grind. Because at the end of each level, Neon White hits you smack in the face with a giant leaderboard that screams, haha, look how much better your friends are than you. And I say, nuh-uh, I can do better than that. So you run it again. It takes you a few tries, but hey, new record. Wow, still 7 seconds behind my friends though. How the hell did they do this so fast? Alright, so you find a new route. Bam, just like that, new record. Still not good enough. Alright, new tech discovered. Bam, shaved off another second. We're getting closer, but holy shit, not close enough. Alright, fuck this. Search up a video for this level. Let's find out what the record does to... What the fuck? Not doing that. Let's learn a slightly easier version of the speedrun route for the next hour. Holy shit, that was painful, but it doesn't matter because you finally... What? It's actually something I found myself saying a lot with this game. What?
See, it was like...
What? 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 Who did I miss?
What? No. No.
Yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes when you're pushing for what seems like near perfection. But just as with any game that forces you to try over and over and over again, that feeling you get from eventually succeeding is unfucking matched. Is that it?
I just keep getting better.
Oh shit.
By
Yes,
a
it is.
long shot! Oh my god! Throughout this list, I've made it pretty clear that I'm not the biggest fan of games that lean too heavy into storytelling at the cost of gameplay. It's just not my sort of genre. The few visual novels that I do like are the mainstream ones with an emphasis on actual gameplay and piecing together the story yourself, like with Ace Attorney or even this shit. Without that, I can certainly appreciate and even get wrapped up in the stories of these games. To the Moon, Finding Paradise, Mouthwashing. I enjoyed these stories for the most part, more so than the games themselves. All this to say, there's something really special about Until Then. It did something unbelievable. It made what should have been a boring game into an experience I was awestruck by. One that I'll never forget. In this game, you play as Mark. Except you don't just play as him, you live as him. That very first time Mark pulls out his phone and as I was scrolling through his feed, I suddenly realized it was fully interactable. You can like and dislike posts, leave comments, scroll through everyone else's comments and interact with those. You realize you can check out all these individual profiles to get a gauge on who Mark knows in this world even before meeting anyone on screen. There's links that take you to websites that have links to other websites, all of which load the in-universe ads before they even load the articles themselves. When you type a message to someone, you can click away at your keyboard as if you're actually typing the message, instead of just choosing an option of what response to automatically send to people. Does all this sound kinda stupid and insignificant? Maybe even a little boring? That's cause it is. None of this even matters in the grand scheme of things, yet it's all here. There's so much detail crammed into something as mundane as just the way your character uses his phone in this world, and it's all so deliberate in design. Just this little aspect of the game makes Mark as a character feel real. It makes this whole world feel real. The way these characters talk and interact with one another is probably the most authentic to real life teenagers I've ever seen. The slang and general language they all use is never stilted or forced. It's just as natural to how some teenagers in real life would talk, which is just one example of how incredible the writing in this game really is. Especially considering how many writers have no fucking clue what kids these days sound like, and almost every high school Netflix drama you see has the most how do you do fellow kids type of writing. The stunning art style of this game is another huge element of what makes this world feel alive. I've never been to the Philippines, but I now imagine this is exactly what it looks like, with 3D environments and 2D pixelated people. The sound design elevates this further. Almost everywhere you go is accompanied by the sound of a bustling, tightly compact neighborhood. Again, so much attention to detail just to make this world feel lived in. Although in saying that, this might be the only game I've ever played where the sound design is noticeably kinda bad as well, in the sense that the audio mixing is really unbalanced, with sound effects sometimes protruding too much into important scenes that should be quiet. And there's a lot of stuff in Until Then that just feels like they should have sound effects to accompany them, but jarringly don't. One example that always sticks out in my mind is this scene where two kids are playing a Christmas carol, except you only hear the flute and not the kid with the maracas. Just a bit bizarre, and it feels like such a strange oversight from the devs in what is otherwise an incredibly polished experience. Though this entire point is more of a minor gripe than a major drawback, because at the end of the day, it's the story that I care about in Until Then. The story is a tangled and complex web that spans across literal parallel universes, and yet it's also so down to earth. There's a lot that I relate to in regard to Mark's character and his general experiences, but he wasn't just some blank slate mirror for me to reflect myself onto. He's a protagonist with rich and defining characteristics and a deep level of emotional complexity. Everyone in this game is like that. That's why I felt so invested in their stories. It felt like I really knew these people. You spend so much time wrapped up in their lives that you start to seriously care about them. I was genuinely engrossed in the lives of Mark and his friends to the point where seeing them happy made me happy, and to the point where it hurt all the more seeing them in pain and sorrow. It felt like I really knew these people, but you soon begin to realize that maybe you don't know enough about them. That there's always different sides to everyone that they won't show you. A part of their lives they want to keep hidden, or just feel like they can't let you see. And once you eventually uncover that hidden side one way or another, you feel like maybe you never knew them at all. Maybe you just weren't enough. Maybe you failed them. If only you had noticed sooner. If only you had tried reaching out even when they couldn't. If only you could have saved them. This game made me cry. And I don't just mean I got teary-eyed and sentimental at some sad scenes. I literally bawled my eyes out. It doesn't take a game making me cry for it to be special, but Until Then is special for getting me to cry over it. Until Then is a game about a lot of things. It's about friendships and falling out. It's about fate and the futility of trying to fight it. It's about life in general, and how it can change drastically through circumstance, with characters trying to see life for what it is, rather than what it could be. It's about finding the strength to put faith in others. It's about the human condition. It's about love. It's about grief, and learning to accept, to let go. Until Then isn't quite my favorite game of 2024, but it is the game that left the greatest impact on me, and it's the one that meant the most to me. Number 3, Balatro. Holy shit, is that Balatro? Man, I love Balatro. Oh, hell yeah. This shit is so addictive. You dealt me crack. What is this? Balatro is so cool. I'm naming my kid Balatro. I could stare at this background for hours. Hey, yo, who was cooking in the studio with this banging music? The sound effects are so damn satisfying. Balatro, my beloved. Balatro claims yet another victim. Is it pronounced Balatro or Balatro? Should have won Game of the Year. Or let's be honest. I feel like this game is maybe better at real poker. It's kind of hard to get a run off the ground in this game. And they put Balatro on my phone? Oh, that's dangerous. I still prefer it on PC. Oh, I can't wait for the DLC. Double my money for free? Hell yeah! I love that baby! I like when the big number. Where is my blueprint? Music has been stuck in my head for the 1 in 4 my ass. It's just so satisfying. Oh, but of course the Valtron hits the 1 in 4. Over 150 hours in this game. That's not even counting mobile. Yeah, but he hasn't even touched any of them. Still hasn't even affordable price. Wow, didn't even 100% the game. Only 3 seconds into 2025 and there's no DLC. They should make Balatro in real life. They already did. It's called the word Balatro in the photographs. It should have won game. Is it pronounced Balatro or Balatro? And they put Balatro on my phone, double my money for free? Fucking over $150 crack. What is this? Balatro hard to get a run off the ground. Hey, who was cooking in the studio with this banging music like solitaire? I'm naming my kid. Hey, who was cooking in the studio with this banging?
My mistake, original gangster. No, this cannot be forgiven. Now empty the compartments of your pantaloons. For what purpose? And discard of your footwear as well. For what purpose?
Hey, remember when I said I'd talk about the Great Ace Attorney Resolve a little later in the list? Yeah, I meant that it's actually my second favorite game of the year. It took me over 2 years of on and mostly off playing the first Great Ace Attorney to get through it, whereas I think I finished the sequel in like 3 weeks. The quality of the cases between these two games is like night and day. There's only one case in Resolve that I would consider mid, and it's just the second case. From the get-go, this game starts to ramp up the focus on that big overarching mystery that was constantly teased in the first game. The second chapter does unfortunately slam the brakes on that by forcing you to solve a fairly boring case that chronologically takes place in the first game, all to get one extra little crumb for the big plot right at the end of it. Total pace killer. Luckily, from case 3 onwards, it's just full speed ahead to learning about the overarching narrative. The third case itself is a great murder plot where I honestly couldn't figure out whether or not this teleportation machine actually worked. Crazier things have happened in this universe after all. This case and its characters finally start to have direct links to the big Reaper of the Bailey mystery, which you finally get to piece together in cases 4 and 5. I will say, I thought it was a bit disappointing initially when I realized that the final 2 cases were actually just one case split into 2 chapters. But considering that these are trying to wrap up a story that's been built up for 2 whole games, I guess it's fair. Hell, the final chapter of this 2-parter took me almost 7 hours to get through, but it was all worth it for me. I was captivated watching this legendary plot spanning literal decades unfold before me. Instead of just solving your usual murder of the week, well, you do have to do that as well, but you're also tasked with literally unearthing the entire plot of these games, and it is a spectacle to behold. Every time I thought I had the full picture, yet another piece of the puzzle presented itself. It's just plot twist after plot twist. Exactly the kind of batshit insane storytelling I love from Ace Attorney. The narrative is very reminiscent of a previous singular Ace Attorney case that feels like it's been stretched out and reimagined for a much grander scale. Fans who've played Great Ace Attorney and the original trilogy know exactly which case I'm referring to. And yeah, maybe recycling ideas and plot devices is a bit lame, but man, I honestly don't care. I already loved the plot from the original case that's clearly inspired this entire game to some degree, and I think the story is done so much better here. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles has some of my favorite characters in the whole series. Maybe they don't quite beat out the iconic characters we've all known since the very beginning, but the main series doesn't have Herlock Sholmes, so I rest my case. Overall, these games have some of the lowest lows across the entire series, but also some of the highest highs. And it just so happens that those highs are mainly from the sequel, which is why the Great Ace Attorney Resolve is like 15 spaces above the first game in my ranking. Yeah, it honestly wasn't even close. Of course Persona 3 Reload is my game of the year. Anyone who knows me saw this coming. I gotta say, after playing through a version of Persona 3 for the first time, I get it now. This shit is peak. Persona 3 Reload is just more of that same formula present in 4 and 5 that I've fallen in love with over the recent years. That perfect blend of daily life shenanigans with fine-tuned, turn-based battles packed with flair remains unmatched in the JRPG sphere. I remember hearing that people didn't like the Tartarus grind from the original, but I honestly didn't mind it at all here. Sure, it can get repetitive, but they change the scenery often enough and add small new elements here and there that help to keep it interesting. Plus, the core turn-based battles are just that good on their own that it helps to keep the grind from ever feeling too monotonous. I really like the overall turn 3 takes on as well. It feels way more high stakes than either 4 or 5 ever did, taking itself a lot more seriously where it needs to. It does take a while for those high stakes to truly set in motion, and I think the main villain trio, or duo I guess, are probably the worst of the modern 3 Persona games by far. But when the actual main threat makes their appearance and the countdown to the end begins, that's when Persona 3 Reload truly hits its peak. Then of course, the entire climax is just brilliant, all leading to that iconic, gut-wrenching ending. You best believe I cried in those final moments. Persona 3 Reload isn't quite my favorite Persona game, but it's still more Persona at the end of the day, and I fucking love this series. Practically from the moment I first booted this game up, it was already cemented as my game of the year.
This is the greatest game of all time.
Also, the answer is stupid and should have just been included with the initial release instead of being sold separately for like $50 6 months after the game's launch. Anyway, wow, that was a long list. I'll make this outro quick, I promise. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. I know I only uploaded like 1 video this year, but that's okay because I plan to upload at least 2 videos next year. Big improvement, I know. One of those videos will be another game show, so if you like that video from this year, you're in luck. And if you don't like that video from this year or you haven't watched it, please, I beg of you. I put so much time into that video. My biggest thanks to everyone who stuck around with my channel despite my lack of uploads. You guys mean the world to me. And in case you're new here and somehow still listening, please subscribe maybe, you know, as a treat. Alright, that's enough out of me. Happy New Year, everyone.